there's been defilement, or when a child comes and says they've been defiled, the first place you have to go is to the police station and put a complaint. The police will then take over from there because the police understand and know, for instance, what is the evidence required, what are the things that you need, what statements need to be taken. So in this case here, what I see is you're saying this child is 8 years old. You have to report that case to the police. If the police tell you there's no evidence, then you deal with that at that point. Now, one of the good things with Children's Matters is we have many organizations in this country that will actually step in to assist even in the prosecution of people who've been accused of defiling a child. So there's a lot of support that you're able to get. So for this matter, I would advise, please take it up with the police, file a report with the police, and then based on that, you should be able to get a way forward. Another question I see here is, I came last time a police sexual harassment. When our wives and daughters go to report at the police post, and when they tell this to police commander, no help. What do they do, please? So I think what I understand here is that you have women who are going to report cases of police sexual harassment, but the police commander is not helping. Now, the law actually has a remedy for this, all right? If you've reported a matter to the police and the police are not taking action, especially because it's against police officers, there is an organization called IPOA, IPOA, Independent Police Oversight Authority. The purpose of IPOA is to actually hold police accountable for such cases where police is committing an offense, but then because they are the ones you go to report the crime to, you're unable to get assistance. So please reach out to IPOA and they'll take over the matter, they'll investigate, and if they find that indeed the commander was trying to protect his corpse, then that matter is taken up and they can actually be taken to court and be sued. So remember, just because the police are not doing something does not mean that that's a dead end. We have IPOA, which helps us to deal with cases of police brutality, cases where the police are actually the ones who are committing offenses. Fantastic. Now, there's another question here touching on the education sector. Why in the education sector is the budget being issued worth 2.5 billion but is not being warded to do the work? I don't actually understand what the question is. Could you kindly just resend that? I feel like the way it's been worded, I'm really struggling to get that. There's another question. Hello, Power Radio. We are tuned in from Ololua, Kajiado. Shout out to everyone in Kajiado, in Ololua. Now, Mike says, how do we follow up on ghost projects that have allocations? Fantastic question. And remember, this ties in with the question we had dealt with earlier, that under Article 35 of the Constitution, as a person, you have a right to actually demand for information. In this case, if there's a project that has allocations and nothing has been happening, the first question you need to find out is who is in charge of that project. Is it the county government? Is it the national government, right? Once you determine, let's say it's the county government, you then issue a letter to the governor or to the county. And you can also follow this up with your MCA, because remember, your MCA is a representative that has been put there so that they can go ahead and raise issues on your behalf at the county assembly. However, if it is the national government, you have to find out which specific, is it a ministry, is it an agency, which specific agency or ministry is in charge of that project. Then you write a letter and you follow up. If they fail to respond to you, you actually can take that matter up to court and you take a petition. Now remember, the Constitution of Kenya is so powerful because it has allowed you and you who is not a lawyer like myself to actually go to court. I think we know Vokio Mtata. You can actually file a matter and go to court and put a petition and say, I was denied this information, and the court recognizes that people like that who are coming to act in person, you have a right to actually appear before a judge. And even in terms of fees, the fees you need to pay in court, if you indicate to the court that, hey, I'm poor, I can't pay these fees, then the court is able to get rid of those fees and you can file the matter. Because remember, the Constitution of Kenya is built around the idea that access to justice needs to be available to every single person, all right? Another question from Ololua. Hey, we have a lot of guys from Ololua in Kajiado County. So fantastic. Thank you for joining us on the show. Now, a borehole was dug on land that was yet to be purchased. NGCDF was to purchase it but have not to date. Now, the community cannot access the water. Who should be held responsible and how? Fantastic. This looks like, as you talk about NGCDF, this means that this is a matter that is within the office of the Member of Parliament, right? So remember Article 35, right to information. You start with that by writing to the Member of Parliament and find out, hey, this was supposed to happen. Why hasn't it happened? And you put in that complaint. And of course, that will be dealt with. I've been speaking a lot, huh? Let's get some music. And then when we come back, we'll answer more questions.
From sunrise to sunset, all day and night. Power Radio.
Barua toka Jaramogi na Kenyatta, wanauliza kama Kenya kuko sawa. Nikawajibu Kenya tuko na disaster, watoto wetu wanazidi kuzikana. Na Tomboya ameshika tama, alituacha kama angali kijana. Je, angekuwa mambo yangekuwa sawa? Ndivyo walivyopanga Maulana. Deni mulizoacha bado tunalipa, na tumekopa zingine China. Tukajenga reli pia barabara, zilizobaki watu wakasanya. So tujiangalie, tuko pabaya leo kuliko jana. Sikio la kufa halisikii dawa. Tuko kwa Twitter tunajibizana. Tujiangalie bane, tuko pabaya leo kuliko jana. Tusipoziba ufa tutajenga kuta. Tusake zetu tungali vijana. Waumini kwa matrina, pasi kwa bima, kushoto fungu la 10 sadaka kulia. Ndio maana mbele ya kanisa mheshimiwa anakula sakramenti kabla ya raia. Siku za mwisho zimeshawadia, na revelation inatuambia hii generation inachoma picha. Ni generation yetu, so tujiangalie. Tuko pabaya leo kuliko jana. Sikio la kufa halisikii dawa. Tuko kwa Twitter tunajibizana. Tujiangalie. Tuko pabaya leo kuliko jana. Tusipoziba ufa tutajenga kuta. Tusake zetu tungali vijana. Mishuki alisema tufungeni mikanda. Ona leo twavuna tulichopanda. Kura zetu zilitugawanya, makabila na pesa pia tulimanga. So when you make your bed, usingizi gani tumelala? Tutajua tujui, Vision 2030 tambaki ni story. Tujiangalie, tuko pabaya leo kuliko jana. Sikio la kufa halisikii dawa. Tuko kwa Twitter tunajibizana. Tujiangalie, tuko pabaya leo kuliko jana. Tusipoziba ufa tutajenga kuta. Tusake zetu tungali vijana. Dosi aliniambianga freedom never comes for free. We vote tribe ama real cash, ask Boni. Tuna Roma lia mwezi tajesu plus dogi. Wal mzima Twitter keotindo fast body. Ban pictures in Africa, black coffee and none. I'm richer than my neighbor but we're both in a slum. If the rich always win, why should the popular run? Unless democracy ni wants use them only for fun. Na hii weekend tuko church, tunauza sura kabisa. Post ya haga wenda poa sana na caption ya scripture. Kayo ndo gospel pitisha bagi ya sadaka kwa club, yeah. Traffic madragu baindai, traffic mandai zina drag. Kwa maya mwizi amemeki stories za shamba amegrab. Kono inahonga imevaa bracelet ya colors za flag, yeah.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up. Vicky Bandes.
Tangu nikuone umenichangamsha. Swaga zako na mapozi unakaa tu star. Oh, hey, una unatoka mtangani we, niseme nawe lugha gani? Hapa Afrika ndo nyumbani, sema uletewe kinywaji gani? Yeah. I'm not a stranger, take it easy. Oh yeah, misbehave and give me a favor, my darling. Jungle love, let me give you jungle love. Touch me your love, let me give you jungle love. Jungle love, let me give you jungle love. Touch me your love, let me give you jungle love. Let me give you some love, let me give you jungle love. Let me give you some love, let me give you jungle love. You shine so bright like a diamond. Your body Kim Kardashian. I swear when I give you jungle love, you won't search anymore. Them call me a boy. Tonight you can call me Mr. Loverman. Hey. Sinanga shida mingi, kwetu wananita Mr. Chairman. Nasigida Dodoma, kwenye rinda la Cinderella. Baby, kwangala nyo, let me give you jungle love. Yeah. Jungle love, let me give you jungle love. Touch me your love, let me give you jungle love. Jungle love, let me give you jungle love. Touch me your love, let me give you jungle love. Let me give you some love, let me give you jungle love. Feel like you want banana. Mungu nimejaza shamba, shida za maji yangu nyororo. Kwako sio shida tena. Feel like you want banana. Mungu nimejaza shamba, shida ya maji yangu nyororo. Kwako sio shida tena. La. Jungle love, let me give you jungle love. Touch me your love, let me give you jungle love. Jungle love, let me give you jungle love. Touch me your love, let me give you jungle love. Jungle love, let me give you jungle love. Touch me your love, let me give you jungle love. Jungle love, let me give you jungle love. Touch me your love, let me give you jungle love.
Welcome back, Sheria Dive on Power Radio. And today is a special day. We are taking questions from you. Questions on things to do with the law that maybe you'd want clarified, you want some knowledge, or you found yourself in a fix and you're wondering, how do I get out of this fix? Now, we have some questions coming in. All the guys listening to us from Ololua. We seem to have a lot of guys from Ololua today. And big up to all our fans in Ololua Ward, Kajiado County. There's a question here. Good afternoon, Mwanawakili. I'm Mesha Kombati from Ololua Ward. My question is, the new law of housing levy is a problem. It has because of many people do not have jobs. So the law is already implemented. What can we do as a common mwananchi? Well, remember the law has been passed by parliament, but that is not the end. If there are certain sections of that law that are unconstitutional, right? They are not in line with the constitution, then you as a mwananchi actually have the power to go to the High Court and to petition the High Court to declare those sections unconstitutional. Even the entire law can actually be declared unconstitutional. You have that power and you're able to do that. The other question I see is, the government is overtaxing us as common mwananchi. What can we do to stop it? Because some of us don't have stable jobs, and the little we get, we have bills to pay. Yet the government is taking all. Help us know how we can start. That's a very good question. I think it goes without saying that we've just experienced a depressed economy, and of course the government seems keen to try and raise taxes as much as possible and to collect taxes from everyone. Now, the first thing is, if a tax has been passed by parliament, then automatically it means that that tax then is due for collection, right? Now, there are many avenues that you have. Number one is you have a member of parliament who sits in parliament and their work is to actually look out for your interest. When we started the show, I said that it was very interesting. I think there's an MP called Wamaua or something. And Wamaua says, when we passed the Finance Act, I was not aware of all the provisions in that act, but I voted yes for it. And when she was grilled and asked, why would you go ahead to vote for something you had not read? She says, you know, even the Bible has many chapters and verses. Ask pastors if they have read all of them. Unfortunately, that's the quality of some of the people we have in parliament nowadays. But the first place is your member of parliament. Your member of parliament is a person who actually should be fighting for you there. So one of the things that I hope as Kenyans will do more and more is to engage with our MPs and to actually ensure that our MPs are doing what we have sent them to parliament to do, right? Remember, if any form of taxation is unconstitutional or illegal, then we have a very, very good judiciary. Kenya's judiciary is actually it's like a very big beacon of light in this country, because we have judges in this country who understand the constitution and the requirements of the constitution, and they're able to step in as long as someone is able to bring forward a good case. Now, another question is, in my community, there is still illicit brew, and it is owned by civil servant's wife. And even if I call the hotline, there is no response. What can we do? Now, you've called the hotline, nothing has been done. You could try and report that to the police. You could also report that to the county commissioner's office, because remember, the county commissioner is in charge of security in the county, right? So you can make that report. But also, that is an opportunity to reach out to what are some of the civil society organizations in your ward or in your county. We have a lot of our partner organizations. For instance, you can reach out to Power 254 and say, hey, this is happening here. We have Sema Ukweli, which is one of our partner media agencies. Reach out and say, hey, this is happening. Remember, as long as people are ignorant about what's happening, then those things will always keep happening. So the thing you always need to do is, if you feel that the government is blocking, the route that has been provided, there's always another route to be followed, right? Remember, if you're listening to us, you can post your questions on socials at Power Radio, and you can tag me as well at James Wanjeri on socials, and we'll be able to respond to all these questions. Now, there's another question here. If a person has an accident and dies, does the family have a right to seek compensation? The answer is yes. Now, it depends with the accident, right? Now, if let's say you were in a matatu and the matatu was in an accident and you died, the matatu, remember, has what we call comprehensive insurance, right? And that comprehensive insurance actually covers everyone who gets into that matatu. And in case of death, then you have a case against the insurance company. So the first thing would be to determine, where did the accident take place? If the accident was on the road, who was the cause of the accident? Once you collect those details, then you're able to find out who was the insurer. Either who the insurer was, or if they didn't have proper insurance, then you go against the person individually. Now, under Kenyan law, if you are involved in an accident, you are required to report to the nearest police station. So you could also check with the police station near where the accident took place to see, did anyone come and report this case in case it was a hit and run, Did someone come and say, hey, this happened, I did this? Once you get those details, you then file a case against them before the courts, and the courts will give you compensation. Compensation is given even for those who are injured, and in case of death, which now is the most serious event that could occur in an accident, then that person's family can get compensated. Now, it's important to note as well that if someone has died, you cannot just wake up and go and file a matter on their behalf, right? If that person left behind a wife or a husband or children, these are what would be known as the next of kin. These next of kin then go to court and they get what we call a grant ad litem. This is a temporary grant. The purpose of this grant is to allow them to then file a suit on behalf of the dead person, all right? So you go to the court, get that grant issued to you. Once the grant is issued, then you can represent them in a matter against the person that caused the accident. Another question I see, I was arrested by police in Lari and they unlawfully searched my house, and they shaved my dreadlocks with shears. for shaving merino sheep. Can I be compensated? First of all, I want you to know that by the police shaving your hair with shears for shaving merino sheep, that actually amounts to cruel treatment. And last week on the show, we were talking about the rights of arrested persons. If the police had arrested you, then they have a right to tell you why they've arrested you. The actions that have been taken by the police here amounts to what we'd call police brutality. So I would advise here that yes, you can be compensated. You need to lodge a complaint with the police first, and then you also lodge a complaint with IPOA. IPOA is the Independent Police Oversight Authority. IPOA is like the guy who keeps the police in check, because the police sometimes want to act like they are a law unto themselves, right? So by taking up the matter to IPOA and you go and say, hey, this is what happened, this is what the police did to me. Of course, it helps that you need to have details. You need to know which police was it, what is their name, what is their police number, and those details will then, IPOA will then be able to follow up and get you justice. But I'm sorry about that. What you are exposed to there was very, very cruel treatment. There's another question here. Burglars broke into my house and stole. The police are reluctant to arrest the suspect. What do I do as the suspect has a field day terrorizing residents in Olepolos, Ngong? Fantastic. This is a good question. So what I see here is you're saying that the police, you've made a complaint to the police, but the police have not done anything, all right? The next thing, just go above that OCS or whoever is in charge of that station. Go above them. We have the DCI office, right? You can go and lodge that complaint with the DCI. Also, you can lodge that complaint with the Inspector General of Police. And remember, many of these cases, the reason why things are allowed to happen this way is because people are not willing to bring this information out. So remember, you can reach out to any of the partner organizations. We have a lot of organizations in this country whose mandate is to help shine the light of injustice on injustices and to just make everyone aware that certain things are happening and they're not right and they're not proper. Okay, so if you have that OB number, take it up with the Office of the Inspector General of Police, take it up with the Office of the DCI, and action should be taken there. And if they're not doing anything, remember, we have a lot of our partner organizations. Sema Ukweli is one of them. Reach out to Sema Ukweli and tell them, hey, this is happening, and we'd like to be assisted. Fantastic. I think we should get some more music. And these are good questions. Please keep them coming. Remember, at Power 254, at Power Radio, at Power Radio on socials, and at James Wanjeri on socials as well. And we're looking up, we'll see your questions, and we'll be able to just answer them. For now, let's get some music. The time now is 2:17.
Power Radio. Power up.
Unatokesaidia metito itabaki kuwa nogo. Sokomoko fulani katikati ya hizi nugu. Kuna kamoja kakostare kana kula njugu. Kando yake sini hawa mandugu. Kila mtu anakimbiza ndio apate hiyo nguvu. Beshte yake ako hapo tu kando. Kijaribu kubonga na patio avocado. Ajipake muda wake ulishaka bando. Safta kutumbika na rushwa mingi skando. So sijipate kokona utaundua kamati. Ya kukunyoosha utoshe kwa hiyo kabati. Kwenye kukushughulikia alitoka kwa hiyo zahanati. Ajaziona viatu wamezoea pati. Ndani ya msitu kumejaa ukora fulani. Huwezi ona maendeleo hata uvae miwani. Fanya makosa urushe mawe ukiwa diwani. Utashtuka sana ukijipata uko ziwani. Sokomoko moto, tunapigwa mboko ndoto. Hiyo ndio yao moto ni noto. Hapa tunapigwa foto Si tunapigwa foto. Sokomoko moto, tunapigwa mboko ndoto. Hiyo ndio yao moto ni loto. Hapa tunapigwa foto Si tunapigwa foto. Jikati ya wanyama kuna wale ni majitu. Wakipatikana kwa ngori wautoaka kitu. Kuswallow everything ndani ya msitu ni uact ninja wakidance katitu. Chief Justice wa huku ni madara na faka. Leta kesi hapa ni panga unataka. Ujirani wao ni wapanya na paka. Saka tako mwage ushames na kikaka. System ya hapa ni ya kuchunga zao familia. I think ikisema hivyo ishakuwa so familia. Kidai miaka ujapanga kuitumia umetengwa nugu. Hapa leta chaimia. Ni obvious hapa kuna pundamilia. Ukipata zebra, cross na amilia. kwa urefu wa meno na mikia, wakubwa wameingia, we kiti amkia.
Boom shakalaka.
Soko moko moto, tunapigwa mboko ndoto. Hiyo ndio yao moto ni loto. Hapa tunapigwa foto Si tunapigwa foto soko moko moto. Tunapigwa mboko ndoto. Hiyo ndio yao moto ni loto. Hapa tunapigwa foto Si tunapigwa foto. Wamechange hizo tisho zimechorwa milioni. Wamevaa vitenge rangi ya bilioni. Style ya kuhaibaneta paka milioni. Na doo zote zilishia huko matirioni. Umesikia sakata ingine bado. Na kemsa isha buy staff na doo bado. Nipe uvumilivu ka Rose Muhando. Juma Singa dami na hamishwa Kajiado. Malalamishi ya mnyama 2 Budget ikisome imeongezwa 0.2. Yeye ndio ngangana sana sio siri. Zawadi zikikama na patwa tungiri. BBI na watoto tuhamishwe. Kifunga macho ndio dozi zamishwe. Wenye makosa wapeleke wasafishwe. Wangolewe kwa viti na doa siitishwe.
Good stuff. Welcome. This is Power Radio, Sheria Dive on Power Radio. This is a show where we talk about the law. That's a nice one, yeah? A show where we talk about the law. My name is James Wanjeri, advocate of the High Court, and I'm here to answer your questions about the law. What are the things that confuse you about the law? What are some of the questions you've had? What are some things you've seen and wondered, hey, but Sheria hapa ni gani lakini? This is Sheria Dive, where we take a deep dive. We're not afraid of just opening situations up and looking at it and saying, what does the law actually provide here? And remember, for us, success in this show is the ability for you to make a decision based on proper information that you have. Fantastic. Now, we've been getting a lot of questions today. Today is a special day because in our midweek show, we get to answer questions that people have, and they could range from criminal law, questions of property, there could be matters of conflict, all those things. And we're happy to provide all this information and to answer your questions. Fantastic. Now, there has been an interesting question here. A Nairobi MCA has tabled a bill banning reggae music. If it is passed, what is the possibility of implementing it? I haven't come across this, and it's very interesting that there would be a bill to ban reggae music. I think first, just looking at it, it seems like a very unconstitutional law because why reggae music? You know, why not rock? Why not R&B? You also need to remember, sometimes politicians just do things for the sake of doing them, you know. It's not, sometimes they don't even take their work seriously. So I'd be keen to see this, but I'm sure this is one of those things that we'll be able to throw out very easily, you know, should the matter actually come up in court. So if passed, what is the possibility of implementing it? I think it's hard to implement because it looks like it's just unconstitutional even hearing about it. Of course, we need to look at it to get more details. So I'll look for this. Next time we come for a midweek show, I should be able to come with some more information on that. Now, there's another question here. Can a defilement case be done through alternative justice system? All right. This is a very, very interesting question. Now, if you know of alternative justice systems, under Article 159, which establishes or sets out, you know, the judiciary and the powers of the judiciary, the law provides that our judiciary will also promote alternative dispute resolution and alternative justice systems, right? However, when it comes to criminal law, there's usually a caveat on that, because remember, in matters of criminal law, there is a victim who is a person, but there is also the state which is actually coming to the defense of the person who is the victim, right? There was a few years ago I believe it was in Mandera, there's a gentleman who killed one of his neighbors. Now, because of the nature of the community there, they decided to visit the family of the victim, and I think they offered some goats in exchange, and these guys shook hands and they forgave each other and they said, okay, that's fine. Now, that case went to the High Court because the High Court was asked, can you kill someone and then you go and do a handshake? and then you say we've gone through our own alternative justice system and this is what has been agreed. In that case, the court said, yes, you actually can do that. However, that decision has been heavily, heavily criticized, right? Because the argument has been that there needs to be a limit to what can be, to what alternative justice systems, where alternative justice systems can be applied, right? It can't just be in everything. And one of the issues, for instance, we've seen as legal actors is that in some cases, you'll find cases of defilement are one of the cases that are most heavily affected by the question of alternative justice system, where you have someone defile a child, then they go and they want to offer a goat or they want to offer some money so that the charges can be dropped. Remember, even as we talk about alternative justice systems, at the end of the day, the question at the top of of anyone's mind should always be, what is the proper justice that needs to be done here? Do you think it's right? And maybe we can also just get some feedback on this. If you listen to this show, do you think it's right that someone can defile an 8-year-old child and then they come and the elders talk and they have a handshake and that story disappears, and that's done? Should that actually happen? And many people have criticized any court that would actually, make such a decision. Because remember, the nature, for instance, of defilement cases is that you have victims who are children, right? They cannot defend themselves. They cannot speak up for themselves. You then bring in the alternative justice system. They shake hands. And of course, it's the parents because the child cannot really shake hands. And they have to grow up in a society where they are seeing the person who committed this grievous offense against them. So that is one of those things that has been frowned upon. So what I know is that in Kenya, alternative justice systems for some cases, e.g. defilement, is not allowed. However, in other cases, for instance, cases of assault, cases of stealing, the courts will actually be very happy to ask the parties, why don't you guys just sit and agree, talk amongst each other, agree on what you want to be done, and once that is done, then you come to court and say, we've agreed, and that matter is set aside. Remember, our justice system is moving away, especially our criminal justice system. It's moving away from that place of punishment and more to a place of rehabilitation. Courts are realizing that even as we send people to prison, these are still human beings. What is the purpose of prison? Is prison a place we take you just to punish you? We have actually moved away from that thinking. And now the idea is that if you go to prison, you're going to prison so that you can be rehabilitated, so that some change can occur within you to allow you to then come back into the society. And when you come back into the society, then you can be reintegrated. So for defilement cases, no, you cannot take that through an alternative justice system. I know that there's a case in court right now on this matter. And once the decision comes out of the court, we'll be able to tell. But I know that generally people are not happy to have cases of defilement taken through alternative justice system because of the nature of the offense and also the age of the victim, as it is often felt that such people should really be protected. Fantastic. The other question here is, as a human rights defender, when you come across a human rights violation, maybe let's say a police brutality incident, for your own security and to avoid confrontation with the said police officer, how or what is the first action you should take to help this victim? All right. This is a very interesting question. And it always reminds me of, for instance, the case of George Floyd, where the whole world got to experience someone dying live. Like the police were just being brutal. And the guy lost his life as we all watched, and he kept screaming, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Now, if you know that in our mtas and in the spaces we come from, police brutality is actually a very real thing, right? After the Constitution of 2010, one of the things, and Kenyans should really appreciate the Constitution that we have now, because that Constitution came from a place of pain, it came from a place of suffering. People had actually seen, for instance, what the police can do, and they were like, no, this can't work. And so if you look at how the Constitution has been put together, the idea is that everything the police do is to serve people. That's why their motto is utumishi kwa wote. That's the purpose of the police force, right? But you'll still find we have certain elements within the police where, you want to be brutal, you want to beat people, you want to do all these things. And we even see this especially in protests where you just have police. It's a peaceful protest. They come in, they want to throw tear gas, they want to start whipping people. Now, it is also an offense, right, to interfere when a police officer is doing their job. So this is a very good question, because then how do you, you're a witness to police brutality. How do you protect yourself? I think one of the most beautiful things we now have is a thing called a mobile phone, right? And a mobile phone has a camera, and with that camera, you can record. I have seen cases where you hear someone recorded a police brutality, and the police, they snatch the phone, you are arrested, you're taken, to the police station, you're put in the cells. But the best way to do it is to record it, right? Record it and share it so that accountability can be done, and so that action can be taken against that police officer. Whatever you do, you just have to make sure don't get in the way, because remember, if a police officer says that you interfered with them while they were doing their job, then that is a criminal offense and you'll actually be put behind bars. There's another question here. How can I protect my intellectual property rights in Kenya? Could you explain using the Willis Raburu and Airtel case? Yeah, this is very interesting. In case you don't know, I haven't seen this judgment, but I was only able to read what was in the papers. Willis Raburu has actually trademarked the name Bazoo, right? And so I think Airtel, in one of their campaigns, they did a campaign where they were using, I think, the Bazoo bundles or something. And so Willis went to court and said, hey, I own the trademark to the name Bazoo, and these guys shouldn't be allowed to use it to profit. And the court said, yeah, that's actually true. You have the trademark. And because you have the trademark, then it's yours. So Airtel was slapped with a judgment. However, they were also given an opportunity to appeal. I think they should appeal. It's an interesting case, mainly because, remember, as we look at the questions of trademark, it's important to note that courts have held that there are certain things, there are certain phrases, for instance, that are so Kenyan, we cannot allow one person to own it, all right? I did highlight on Twitter or X a few days ago that there was a case of someone who had registered a trademark for Proudly Kenyan. And so one day when a local petroleum company started putting out a promotion, and on the products that they were selling, they said Proudly Kenyan. He went to court and said, wait, I own Proudly Kenyan. That's my trademark. The court said the term Proudly Kenyan should be owned by everyone. It shouldn't be owned by one person, right? And because of that, we cannot then ask that, we cannot agree that we can protect this for you. Now, that's on the Willis Raburu story. Of course, that will be a matter in court. The court will determine. But in terms of intellectual property, we look at it in different ways. The first one is copyright. Now, copyright applies to, works of art. It applies to maybe you've written a book, maybe you've released a song, right? Copyright means that you as an individual then have the power, right, to ensure that no one can make a copy of that work and sell it. That's actually what copyright means. It means the right to copy. So the person who has a copyright is the only one who can make a copy of that item and make it available for sale. So if I wrote a book today and then you go and print copies and then you're selling, let's say in town on the streets, you don't have copyright. So that becomes a criminal offense and they can actually arrest you. So copyright is one of those ways. Now, generally, copyright is automatic. The creator of an item is automatically the owner. However, the Copyright Board in Kenya also issues certificates for items of copyright. So this goes out to musicians, artists. You're putting out anything, you make sure you get a copyright. The other thing is a trademark, all right? So, for instance, you're an artist, for instance, and let's even look at something like Kalamashaka, for instance, okay? This is Kalamashaka. This is the name they use. They produce music. And then tomorrow, a guy maybe comes and says, I am also Kalamashaka, and I sell sweets, Kalamashaka sweets, all right? A trademark basically is a protection of the name you use to trade. Okay, so if you have a business or if you have a brand and your brand is, let's say, called Kasha, when you trademark Kasha, it means that no one can use the Kasha, the name, right, or the image associated with that name to then begin to make money or to sell products, right? So you have that. Then the other thing is the patent. Patent now is for novel inventions. By novel, we mean like, you see, M-Pesa. M-Pesa is something that requires a patent because you've created something that has never existed, right? And there are patents for everything. Right now, I'm speaking into a mic, and I can assure you there's a patent for this mic because if you take this mic and you put another mic here, you'll just discover there's a big difference in how the two mics work, right? Phones, there's a patent even for a phone. There's a patent for the tissue holder that you use in your house, So patents are for things, creative things that you've created, and they can be used for industrial purposes. So those are mostly the three ways in which you can protect your intellectual property. And we have enough bodies that help you to get into the registration process. Remember, for instance, if it's something like a trademark, you are required, when you apply, first you have to do a search to ensure that someone else has not registered something similar, because then you cannot have two people owning the same trademark. Now, in terms of trademark also is in classes, right? You'll find that maybe they give you, there's a class maybe in arts, there's a class in maybe creating furniture, all that. So you register it according to the class in which you operate. Fantastic. Next question. Is bribery an offense in Kenya? Yes, and I don't think I need to say anymore. Yes, it is an offense, a very big offense. And the person caught bribing is actually charged, right, with a crime. And also the person receiving the bribe is also charged with a crime. There's another question here. Is hate speech an offense? Yes, hate speech is an offense. What is hate speech? Hate speech is any statements, all right? Any statements that are put out that are meant to inspire hate against either a person, either a community. And you'll remember, if you look at 2007, 2008, part of the reason why guys went to war is because there's a lot of hate speech, and people are using their words to turn communities against each other. One of the best examples of hate speech is in Rwanda, where you have one community calling the other community cockroaches. And the idea was, you see, if you can think of someone as a cockroach, it actually becomes very easy to kill them, because how do you kill a cockroach? You just step on it and move on, right? You smash it and you move on. So hate speech is powerful because it devalues people, right? And once you've devalued someone, it becomes very easy to commit a criminal offense against them. Now, Article 33 of the Constitution of Kenya provides for freedom of expression. This is what it says. Every person has the right to freedom of expression, which includes, number one, the freedom to seek, receive, or impart information or ideas. Number two, the freedom of artistic creativity. Remember about reggae? Yeah. You have the freedom of artistic creativity. And number three, academic freedom and the freedom of scientific research. Now, under Article 33.2, it says, the right to freedom of expression does not extend to, number one, propaganda for war. Number two, incitement to violence. Number three, hate speech. Or, number four, advocacy of hatred that, one, constitutes ethnic incitement, vilification of others, or incitement to cause harm, or is based on any ground of discrimination specified or contemplated in Article 27. And of course, under Article 33.3, it says, in the exercise of the right to freedom of expression, every person shall respect the rights and reputation of others. Okay? So, I remember that we have this, I think it used to be called, there was a commission on cohesion, right? And they did take up some politicians to court over hate speech, that some remarks had been made and they amounted to hate speech. I don't think any of them have ever been found guilty. And that's the unfortunate bit. So in terms of how the question of hate speech has developed in Kenya, it's a sad story because most of the times people accused have been politicians, and they always find a way to win those cases. Either that, or sometimes you just find that the evidence is very, very weak. So they're able to get away with that. So we're going to get some music. The time now is 2:39. This show ends at 3. So if you have any other questions, remember you can send them out at Power Radio, at James Wanjeri on the socials. And we're going to be looking, and those of us who are watching live on YouTube as well, you can just use the comment section to post any questions. Let's get some music.
From sunrise to sunset, all day and night. Power Radio. Unajua ni wewe ulitudanganya tutakuwa na. Unajua ni wewe ulitudanganya tutakuwa na.
Change, page, gauge, wait, left, wait, that's wait, check, page, new page. Sijajua, bado sina kujua, sijajua, bado sijapumua, sijajua, mpango ni kuniua, sijajua, jasho ni kujijua, sijajua.
Nasikia wakiuliza mhesha takavyo lini, guess panda ngazi hurudi chini, niamini I miss those days za kijijini, broke ninjas kabla hajapatana na sivisa ni mimi, na bado sina, nauliza vipi, na call na reply ni sina, you can see me natulia ndika vina kama sana hailipi, I got me free man na call na mbona ushiki.
Mada kwa pepa ni laughter, mada for pepa ni kashfa, mata kwa koti ni gangster, mata kwa hosi ni hat run. Stop. Stop.
Sorry sana my friend. Unaelewa ile uchungu uko nayo. Sawa. Sasa wewe ya tu kidogo alafu roho yako itafunguka. Ndio nasema badala ya stadium si afadhali ufanye mambo ya state pesa upate mkwanja. Ama namna gani my friend? State pesa ndo nini? Ingana hiyo kitu bwana. Ndio ile hapa. Delayed promises center elo. 1 million job promises iko wapi? 1 million job promises iko wapi bwana? Wewe wacha kwanza. Ulisikia wapi mambo ya hii 1 million jobs per year?
Greetings.
This salivation to all the females, far and beyond. Now daughters, born I'm a girl, living in a manly world, yeah. No bed for me back, unless somebody gonna take me in. Papa say you better find your place. Time to hand your bed for me little ones. Brother say you better find a man. Need a settlement for me investment. Only 16, growing up a woman and no choice. Oi unalia, nakucheki vile unasafa no. Oi unalia no, nakucheki vile unasafa no. You are gonna rise up one day, now lose hope. Child of the earth, don't you ever lose your glow. Oi nalia no, nakucheki vile unasafa no. So me head to the city with little education for me back. To stay with an uncle and an aunt as a help for his life. I know big young lady hit the flow. When wife away, man, I wanna touch me low. Try to refuse, yeah, go suffer some blow. what is my crime? Is it because I'm a woman? No. Just because I'm a woman? No. Oi, oi, unalia. Nakucheki vile unasafa, no. Oi, oi, unalia, no. Nakucheki vile unasafa, no. You are gonna rise up one day, now lose hope. Shall not be out, don't you ever lose your glow. Oi, oi, nalia, no. Nakucheki vile unasafa, no. So me meet another brother, he must say I need a wife. We cook and clean and me know me need a bed. Now, to save me this shame, baby, save me this shame. Messiah turned the devil drawing blood from my skin. Now, no. Broken bones, shattered dreams. I'm in pain, cannot breathe. Oi, oi, unalia. Nakucheki vile unasafa, no. Oi, oi, unalia, no. Nakucheki vile unasafa, no. You are gonna rise up one day, now lose hope. Shall not be out, don't you ever lose your glow. Oi, oi, nalia, no. Nakucheki vile unasafa, no.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
Fantastic. Welcome. This is Sheria Dive on at Power Radio. Now remember, this is a show where we talk about the law, and everything about the law. You interact with the law on a daily basis, whether you know it or not, whether you know what the law is or not. And we're here to help you understand the law. We're here to demystify the law. We're here to make it simple for you to be able to know what the law provides for you. My name is James Wanjeri, and I'm your host, and I am an advocate of the High Court. That's why I'm here talking about the law. Na kuna swali nimeulizwa very interesting hapa. So this gentleman says he was at an event, akaona karao akishika wasee, and he decided to take a photo. And he was slapped first, alipigwa mabare, and then akashikwa, akanyang'anywa simu, and they deleted the photos. It's actually, first, that amounts to police brutality, because karao fai kuwa anakupiga, right? That's not part of their work when they are arresting you, and especially you've not resisted arrest. So for such a case, that is police brutality. You should report to the police, and also una report pale IPOA. Remember, IPOA kazi yao si kudeal na ati kesi kubwa. They actually deal with all cases of police brutality, or where police are doing the things that are against the law. Kama polisi anakiuka haki na sheria, then unaenda pale IPOA. IPOA ndio kama ni unakumbuka deputy principal. Deputy principal alikuwa anashika kiboko manze. So IPOA kazi yao ni kusaidia polisi kuwa accountable, right? Kitu yote polisi anafanya, anajua ataulizwa maswali na atajibu. So as Kenyans, tusiogope makarao, because polisi ni kama wewe. Polisi ni mtu kama wewe, na hiyo bunduki venye ameshika na hiyo uniform venye amevaa ndio akulinde wewe kama mwananchi. So remember, the police are not supposed to beat you or to torture you because of what you've done. There's a question here. Can paralegals represent the community in public litigation matters? All right? Now, in Kenya, there are only two people who can appear in court to file a case. The first is advocates. Now, advocates, wakili anaapia pale kotini, why? Juu amefanywa training na amepewa certificate, akona license ya kusimama mbele ya koti. The second person who can do this is ordinary mwananchi. Okay? Ordinary mwananchi means you and I. Wewe unaweza enda kotini na ujirepresent. But also, Constitution ya Kenya, katiba imeleta another provision where you can go and represent someone. Unaweza simamia mtu kotini, unaweza enda kotini useme, mimi ni, let's say, mi ni mkazi wa Jeri, and in Jeri kumekuwa na police brutality, and you know, watu wameumizwa, this has happened. You don't have to be a victim for you to go before the court. So you are allowed in what we call public interest litigation. You are appearing on behalf of others, where you're saying their rights have been violated, and because those rights have been violated, this is me coming on behalf of everyone else to say that the court should intervene. So paralegal anaweza appear, but hata appear kama wakili. They can only appear if they're acting on behalf of a group of persons, right? Now, this week, something very, very interesting happened, okay? On 16th July 2022, a gentleman known as Ayika Joshua Otieno posted a tweet, all right, on Twitter. It was still called Twitter. This is what the tweet said. I am not a prophet, neither am I a soothsayer, but get it from me. In between Wednesday to Friday next week, we might have the army taking over from this biblical regime. Prepare for an army to take over government for the next 90 days. Then we shall have elections. Of course, this was happening in July 2022. Now, Joshua was then arrested, arraigned, and he was charged in court on 24th July 2023. And he was accused of something we call subversive activities, contrary to Section 77(1) of the Penal Code. Now, what are subversive activities? Basically, there's something in our law that says you cannot say anything that is likely to cause public disorder. All right? So, by this guy saying that the army is going to take over the country, this government will be thrown out, that amounts to a subversive activity. Now, Katiba Institute was the first petitioner in a case that was then taken before the court. And the purpose of that case was to actually determine, can you be accused of being subversive in Kenya, right? And for Katiba, the argument, and other petitioners, the argument was that the offense is vague. It's a very vague offense because it does not really define what exactly amounts to subversive activities, and it also unjustifiably limits the right to freedom of expression. Remember, we were reading about freedom of expression a short while ago under Article 33 of the Constitution. If there's a law that says there are certain things you cannot say, and that law is also vague because haisemi clearly what are these things that you cannot say, but then the police want to bring you to court to charge you. Now, in a very, very interesting judgment that was issued just the other day, the court said that Section 77 of the Penal Code is written in a language that is broad and it is vague. Now, remember, laws need to be specific. Laws need to be so specific. For instance, the law needs to say this is a cup so that you can never, ever mistake it for a plate. If you ever look at a law and wonder, what is the law really saying here? Then that law is vague, and that law cannot be applied, all right? Now, this is what the court said. I'll read it as the court said. The section is vague and overbroad, firstly, by not explicitly limiting the freedom of expression, but adding the limitation on to other acts or conduct. There exists confusing definition of subversion, especially about the meaning of prejudicial to public order, security of Kenya, and administration of justice, in defiance of or disobedience to the law and lawful authority and lawful society, or hatred or contempt or excite disaffection against any public officer or any class of public officer. None of the terms used in the offense are defined or capable of precise or objective legal definition or understanding. Now, hata mimi kama wakili nimeshanga kumendaje hapo. So I'm going to try and break this down, okay, one by one. The problem with this law is that ilikuwa inasema that you are guilty of subversion, for instance, if you say something that is prejudicial to public order, okay? You see, society has a certain order. So kitu yote utasema yenye itafanya hiyo order ikose kwa maintain, then that's subversion. Okay? It also says, if you say anything that is prejudicial to the security of Kenya, anything that seeks to affect or hamper the security of Kenya or the administration of justice. It also made it an offense to defy the law and lawful authority. Okay? Also, apparently, you could not express hatred or contempt against a public officer. Like you can't say, we don't like the president, we hate the president, for instance. Then you're accused hapa kuna subversion. So you can see the problem here is that you have a law that is so broad that, by the way, it's like, I think tunyamaze tu. Because hatujui kama kitu tumesema. Like, I could just be sitting here in the studio talking about this. Nipate nangojewa hapa nje. You know, kuja wewe umeongea sana. You know, subversion. So this was struck down. And the court has said that section 77 of the Penal Code, it's incapable of, you know, even the court itself cannot understand what really is happening here. And this is important because a lot of people have been taken to the criminal court because of things that they have said online. I think we remember there was a gentleman who said something against Uhuru Kenyatta, akapelekwa kotini, all these things. And it's not a coincidence that people are actually arrested and taken to court for saying things that are considered anti-government. As a Kenyan, you have the right to be anti-government, right? There is no constitutional responsibility on anybody to love their government. The responsibility is to love your country, right? And so anything that comes to try and interfere with your freedom of speech as a person, the court will always strike it down. And remember, as I said, you know, every 5 years when we vote in this country, the reason we've not fought since 2013, 2017, and 2022 is because Kenyans believe in the Supreme Court. Kenyans believe that we have a court where you can take a case and it will be heard. Kenyans believe that tuko na judiciary yenye utaenda na usikizwe, right? That unaweza peleka gava kotini na gava iambiwe hiyo housing levy hamtaitisha wase juu hamkufuata sheria. We have a judiciary yenye inaweza ambia gava venye mmechuja wase kwa makeja zao hapo, that was not the right procedure na i-cancel hiyo story. Tuko na gava inaweza ambia a whole president, wewe ulichukua shake ya omse, hiyo shamba ulichukua ni ya omse, mrudishie hiyo shamba. Imagine a whole president. That is the power of the judiciary that we have in this country. And that is one thing that we really, really need to be grateful for as a country. Because I always remember there was a funny story of a judge. Huyu jamaa alikuwa wakili na alikuwa na makesi nyingi sana kula pesa ya maclient. So de moja ako kejani and then akaona Peugeot 505. Ama ilikuwa 504. Imekuja hapo kwake. And if you remember wale wase ni wazee kidogo, wase wa 90s, unakumbuka Peugeot ilikuwa ya Flying Squad, makarao, si ndio? Huo mzee wacha atoke teke. Amehepa, ameingia kwa shake, ameingia kwa shamba huko, anatoroka juu amejua sasa leo amekujiwa juu zile makesi yako nazo. Ikabidi makarao ameingia hadi huko kwa shamba kumpata amejificha kwa miwa na mahindi. Jamaa kuuliza wanamshikia nini, akwambia hatuja kuja kushika Moi, amekuwa point kama judge. Imagine. The guy akaekwa kwa 505, akapelekwa Nairobi na akakuwa judge. A guy who had stolen clients' money, amefanya sijui nini. That is the country we used to have, where the government just used to do whatever they want. They had so much power, and citizens, you know, people like you and I, so walikuwa na feel manze, hii country inakuwa ngumu kupata justice. And that's one of the things that the Constitution has come to help us with. And that's why even on shows like this, the Sheria Dive on Power Radio, the Constitution is Kenya's gift to Kenyans. This is our gift. And we have a responsibility to ensure that the Constitution is always upheld. Because wacha niwaambie, this is our last line of defense. Katiba ndio our last line of defense. So anytime tunaona mtu anajaribu kufinyilia katiba, as a country we have every right to stand and say no. Juu tunajua penye tumetoka na tunajua penye tunataka hii country ende. So ladies and gentlemen, that is Sheria Dive. I've been your host, James Wanjeri, advocate of the High Court. Thank you so much for listening in and for sending your questions. Remember, we meet here on Saturday at 1 p.m. We're just going to be talking about the events of the week and the highlights of the week. So see you here on Saturday. Have a lovely afternoon. We always end with Midnight Train by Sauti Sol. So ukisikia hiyo ngoma unajua manze Sheria Dive imeisha. And just a big shout out to our friends in Ololua who have really come through and have sent a lot of the questions. Have a blessed afternoon, and even as we look to the end of the week. Sasa tuko Wednesday manze, wiki ishaanza kushuka. So tuko pamoja, and remember, Katiba juu.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
Rocking on the midnight train. Oh Lord, steady rocking on the midnight train to Zion.
From sunrise to sunset, all day and night.